Hi, I'm Jason Matthews, owner of Matthews Painting Company near Warsaw, Indiana. We continue our tutorial videos that we show all new employees that we train to become professional painters. This video will be discussing some basic accessories that we send out with our crew leaders when they go out with airless sprayers to spray an exterior of a home, which we do many times. Over here, we'll start with just the bin. We always make sure we have a bin that can fit most of these accessories in there, except for some of the extensions and shields on the end. And we have a sheet that actually is some instructions on how to clean out a sprayer that has water-based paint in it. We usually leave that at the shop. But then if we can get kind of a close-up here, this is our sprayer list. And it's most of the things that we actually have in this bin that we just showed you to go out with our airless sprayer units. We'll stay close in with the camera here. We're going to go through some of the accessories here. We're going to go over some of our guns at a later time, but these are two different types of filters for a Graco gun. We have one here that's a 60 mesh and 100 mesh, or this is more for spraying siding, concrete, stucco, brick. When we're not needing a fine tip, which we'll discuss here in a minute, we put this filter in. It's got a little bit larger holes, as you can see in comparison. We'll try to get one in a little better shape here. You can see hopefully how the holes are a little more fine here, and these have a little bit bigger openings. And so we'll discuss tip size in a minute, and we'll cover that again. We also have a couple other gun filters in here. These are for the Graco guns. These are for the Titan guns. And this is a little bit more coarse. This is more fine. And we'll discuss when to use those, mainly when we have a fine finish tip, when we're doing gutters or downspouts or doing windows. And this is more when we're actually spraying solid stain or paint on exterior stucco, brick, cedar, siding, things of that nature. These do go in differently into the guns, but we will show those in a later video. These just poke in and these actually screw in, and they're reverse threaded. Here we actually have a few guards that we actually include into the kit here. And then we also have these little half moon inserts that come with a little gasket that goes on the end. And those will just push up into the shield itself, which we will show you on a video as well. Here we just have some different tip sizes. We start with a larger tip, a 619. Now the first number on all of these in this area here where your tips are, the first number refers to how wide the fan is. So 6 times 2 would be 12. 12 inches is how wide the fan will be when you're spraying, when you're about 10 to 12 inches from the surface. And the 19 is just 19 thousandths. And what I mean by that is that little opening right there has a 19 thousandths opening. That's where the spray comes out of. The back is if your sprayer tip gets plugged up with paint, you can reverse the tip and shoot paint out the back. We'll discuss that on a later video as well, including why this little tip is on these as well. Here we have a 517. So again, that's a 10-inch spread because double the first number and 17 thousandths, so we're getting a little bit smaller of an opening. We still use these mainly for cedar siding, brick, stucco, things of that nature where more can come out and we have someone that's back rolling or back brushing afterwards. We'll jump over to here. We have a 415 and a 413 tip. These are really good for someone with little experience or who's learning to spray some of the larger surfaces that we were talking about over here. They're a little bit less of a fan width, so that 4 you would just double, so it's 8 inches. And then you have a little bit smaller opening. You have a 15 thousandths and a 13 thousandths opening, so less product will come out of these, which gives someone that's learning a little bit more time to make adjustments. On this back row here, we have some fine finish tips. As you can see, we have a 2, a 3, and a 3. So that's just a 4-inch fan, a 6-inch fan, and a 6-inch fan because we're doubling that number. And then the 11 is the 11 thousandths, very, very small opening. This is a 13 thousandths. Now we were just talking earlier about fine finish tips. That would be these three. We consider these fine finish tips. And they get smaller, yeah. There's a 210 as well. But with these here, come back to the gun filters. With these 211, 311, and 313, we would use the fine. And it would be these two right here. These two filters is what we would use with a 211, 311, or 313. That allows less particulates to get up into your line, and those tips will not be plugging so much. This is a filter we did not discuss yet. Very similar. You have a fine as well as a little bit more coarse. These are also for the Graco smaller unit, the Graco 495. So you have double the filtering going on. So you have these in the actual unit. We'll show that at a later video. And these in the guns, which kind of gives you double protection from these tips getting plugged up. Over here is our larger 2-gun unit we have. And those go down into the unit itself, which you would typically use with a more coarse gun filter and larger projects. And these inlet tube strainers, that's where the tube goes down into the paint and sucks the paint up. Those are the two different sizes we have for our different sprayer sizes. Over here, we just throw in a vinyl brush as well as some Teflon tape. This is a little adapter that we wrap clockwise if we want to attach this hose over here to the right and have more hose on our actual unit. It's important you wrap this clockwise on these little male adapters so that the Teflon tape works how it's supposed to. We throw in an extra airless spray gun, some instructions that talk about an injection injury, so you have to be very careful when you are using these guns because certain products can be poisonous if injected into your skin. We also throw in a vice grip, a crescent wrench, and some channel locks. And those are needed at different times when we're changing guns or we're trying to get the filter out of the unit, and things can sometimes be pretty tight and locked up. You could step back a little bit here with the camera. We're just going to cover some of the safety equipment that we actually send out. This here is just some spray socks that you can fit over your head and neck. You can see the guy in that picture there. That just keeps a lot of the overspray off of you. These are not very much fun when it's 90 degrees because you're sweating so badly. We throw out some coveralls. We try to have an extra large as well as a large in there for some of our employees to be able to put on if they don't want the overspray again getting on them. We always send out some safety glasses, sunglass type as well as regular. We talked about the extra hose. And these are some extensions. We do not use these much, but I thought I'd go through it real quickly. If this is something that you do use, the guard and the tip go on the end. And then this one happens to have a gasket if you want to look down in there and get kind of close. But you have to make sure they have the white piece of plastic fitting down in there, the little bushing, as well as the rubber O-ring if you're going to use this. And that one's a little dirty. That screws onto the end of the gun, like so, tighten down with a crescent wrench, and then you can get a little bit further rather than getting up on a ladder up and down all the time. I will say though, with these two extension tubes, that when you let off the gun trigger, the pressure in here will still allow paint to spit out. So these are not great choices for some of the applications where we need a little bit more of a fine finish and a nicer look. If we're doing a job where we're back brushing or back rolling anyway, these would be just fine. This one spits very little because it's shorter, so if you can get away with using a shorter one, I would. This here is another nice extension. It's got an inline gun. Notice that you can actually just pull the trigger here. This also has what's called a clean shot valve at the end. So you could actually screw in a guard and a tip into this here. And the guts inside this clean shot tip are actually the same as that's in the gun. So the reason for this is that when you press the handle here, you have to have a lot of pressure, and once you reach a certain amount of pressure, the needle inside here will release, and this becomes a gun as well. And the reason for this is that when you let off this handle, this stops immediately and it won't spit. And that was one of the problems that you have with an extension tube like this. The only disadvantage of the clean shot valve here, is if we can get in real close, is if you notice the instructions here, you've got to really pay attention to that. So when you go all the way clockwise and closed, it's ready to spray. But when you clean it, you can see how that's coming back there. You've got to completely open that up. And there's little instructions on here that says spray and flush, I believe. Let me see if I'm right. Yes, it does. You just have to make sure that you close that down when you go to spray. But when you're back at the shop, you have to open up while you're cleaning this out, or you will ruin this the first time that you actually use it. And this does rotate for different angles, so it can be really nice if you're up here along soffits and things of that nature. You can actually turn it that way, and you have other folks behind you back brushing and back rolling. So that was just a quick little lesson on some of the extensions that can be used. And in closing, we'll talk about these shields here. We have some small shields, and this is like if you have an area that you need to kind of guard when you're spraying. We use that at times when we do not need to use tape and plastic, although we use tape and plastic a lot. And this is a larger 3-foot shield. Notice we put some tape on here. We didn't cover it all the way, but we actually do that because these get covered in paint. Then when we're done, we can actually cut the tape, take it off, and we have a nice new shield again. We like these metal shields because when you hold them up and try to guard something, they stay really, really rigid. So a lot of times we'll use that up on a shingle line, for example, if we're spraying a fascia. It's good to be able to push it in tight and hold it and only spray about from here to here so you don't have overspray shooting out the ends. We do not like the plastic ones because when you have a 3-foot plastic one and hold it like this, it droops. And it's really hard to try to push up in there and keep tight. This does rotate just a little bit, so if you did not want to be down on your knees, or if you were going to be standing up and maybe guarding a foundation, for example, you could be in here and just be standing up and angling it like so. I hope that was helpful, seeing our video on airless spray accessories. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube if you liked what you saw, or you can contact us at matthewspainting.com.